So it's time for another personal share, the sharing of what is happening to me, um, along this awakening consciousness journey. So for those of you who are watching this video and haven't watched the other videos or are new, welcome. And I just wanted to say that the original intent of this YouTube channel was to share, to simply share all of the experiences, the ups and downs, everything of going through what I'm going through is a very progressive, step-by-step awakening of consciousness process. Sharing all the different, not levels, but stages and what it feels like to be in those stages. So I don't know how I got off on doing energy reports and oracle sessions and those silly things, but they're fun to do and maybe they're slightly entertaining for people, but this was really the purpose of this channel. So I hope you find some of this information helpful. And I probably will pause this video several times just to gather my thoughts. Number one, because I haven't written anything down and it's been about a year. It feels like a year, so maybe a year and a half since my last update. But also we have more chainsaw tree cutting people around, and sometimes that chainsaw is so loud I can't even concentrate. Anyway, let me see here. I did make some notes. So about a year and a half ago, where it appears that I'm at on this journey is about a year and a half ago. I somehow stumbled onto the realization of what they call the no self experience, or the non-dual awakening, or Brahman awareness. And it's kind of funny, like my memory, I don't have memory anymore. So it's hard for me to recall what these stages felt like. But the realization of no self or non-dual awareness is quite a jolt to your system. You literally wake up to the nothingness of everything, the stillness, the silence. For me, it was nothingness. Like different people experience it different ways. So the nothingness of everything, and you lose all sense of, you realize that there's no one here. There's no personal self. There is a personal body, there's a personal vehicle, but there never was a personal self here. And it's hard to describe to somebody who's not in it, who hasn't realized that. It's a very strange and shocking awakening to arrive at. And for me, and different people awaken in different ways, but many, I would say most, once they have this no self-awareness, there's a very long time of integration, because you end up, I just realized this now, I just learned this, that because this is what happened to me. You kind of end up in this no self realization, but you're not embodied with it. And it takes many years of clearing stuff out to embody this realization. It's quite a shocker. And you can end up in like the void. And this is what I finally realized I was in. I was kind of, you're not stuck in the void, but you're like poised or staged in the void. In the void, you're out there. On one respect, it's I don't know how to explain it. It's comforting and fun, because all I saw was like the nothingness. You experience nothingness. You see nothingness in everything. And people I would look at, all I could connect with was their nothingness. It was quite funny. you get a real high perspective of clarity being in this void, because you're highly, highly detached from kind of your body and being in the real world. It's a real transcendent, detached kind of way. And it's, I would say it's highly mental, right? Because you're working to embody something. But this void, once when no self hits, you also lose a lot, if not all, of the feel good, warm, cozy bliss experiences of God. You lose God. You lose experiences, spiritual experiences, and it's such a weird feeling. You lose it all. Everything becomes nothingness. And you lose yourself as well. You don't know who you are, right? It's awful because you know that no one's here, and yet all these old programs are still coming up, and it feels like there's a person here, but you know there's not a person here, and you're not attached to that construct anymore, and yet it's coming up. It's so difficult. You lose God, and you lose all motivation for anything. Well, I wouldn't say motivation, interest in anything. For me, anything spiritual just made me gag. I can't stand it anymore. Well, I'm not going to say anymore, but because it's kind of coming back. You lose any interest in spiritual. You see with total clarity kind of the joke of the spiritual journey, and how false the rhetoric or the teaching, some of the teaching of the spiritual teachers out there, and the people on the spiritual journey, how false all of those claims were. I don't know how to explain this, but that the spiritual, here's what I'll tell you. This awakening, you totally, totally come to realize it has nothing to do, I mean, I knew this, but you see it very clearly with the personality. The personality that interacts with others. Awakening has nothing to do with it. It doesn't make this personality better. I mean, it can, right? You have higher perspective, you have more peace and some calm, but the personality still is doing its thing. And you see the falseness of your prior spiritual journey of trying to be a better you, right? You're trying to, you're feeling guilty for the way you reacted. I don't know, all that stuff of trying to be a better person, to be to bring your higher self in, to be the good person, to be the spiritual person, wear the right clothes, say the right things, act a certain way. You see the falseness of it, and it's just shocking. And anyway, I don't know if I'm making sense, because really I cannot tell you how memory goes away. I cannot remember. That's why I kind of wanted to do this now while I still have some lingering memories of this no self, whatever, transition thing. Anyway, so you kind of get stuck in this void of nothingness. And I will tell you, it comes with, or it can come with, for me, it came with heavy, heavy depression, total detachment from life. On some respects, good, right? You see things with much clarity, hardly any more reaction to things going on in the outer world. And you have a real clarity of, you can really tune into things with clarity. But on the other respect, you feel nothing. And you have no motivation, your whole spiritual life, spiritual journey, spiritual interests, and if that's the thing that you have lived for your whole life, you lose your entire life. In fact, during this time, you're shattering all the images, every motivation you've had, they're all going away, and you see them as false. So you literally don't even have a self anymore, even if it was a false self. You don't know who you are. You don't know what the world is about. It makes no sense to you. I literally thought I was going crazy. I thought nothing in this world makes sense. It's all nothingness. And it can be very, very depressive. Let me just tell you, that is a stage. And when I finally realized, I was having this kind of realization come in about a month or so ago, that I must be stuck in the void, that I've had this realization of no self, Brahman, non-dual. And by the way, you lose all sense of unity consciousness. Oneness goes away. It's all very freaky, good, but freaky. Oh, this dog is barking. I hope you can't hear that. And I was beginning to realize, oh man, I've had this realization, but because I haven't quite embodied things, I'm stuck in limbo. Like my awareness is floating around here, waiting for the body to be ready or some other clearings to happen, whatever. And then once embodiment happens, which is, I think it has happened, you calm down. But I will say, as usual, I stumbled across an interview on BatGap by the guest is Stephen D'Amico, D''Amico, and he talks so clearly about this stage. And he also said that he was stuck in the void and felt very depressed. And so it was very comforting to hear that, as I was getting this inkling that this was happening. And of course, the universe throws me an interview, and there the person confirmed what was happening, and it totally calmed me down. And it was that calming down of things that started the shift into whole new other territory. So anyway, I recommend that video, that BatGap interview. Let's see, what else did I want to say? Something I just want to stress. The one thing I do want to stress on this video is, like I said before, the awakening process, as long as there is a truly sincere longing, you know if you have it, and if you don't. For me, it was that utter longing to go home, to be in total oneness with God. It's just a burning that just doesn't go away. It's a burning, it's a longing. It's like life doesn't matter, nothing else matters in my life. As long as you have that, some kind of, or even curiosity, it doesn't matter what the personality is doing. As long as there is sincere longing and some efforting to, take a couple steps towards God, awakening is going to happen. I can't believe, I said to myself about a month ago, I was like, shit, because some things shifted, and I was like, are you kidding me? It's like, in spite of or despite of all of my ego resistance and being angry at God and being hateful and all my shit coming up, and just being kind of a saucy human being. Not a very kind, no, I was kind, but just grumpy and angry at God and hating the spiritual journey, and not having a very good spiritual practice. I mean, I tried my best, but I was like, if this is what it's all about, I hate it. What have you done? Angry. Despite all that, it still happens. So if it can happen here in this vehicle, that shifts can happen for you as well. You don't have to be perfect, because remember, it's not the personality that awakens, it's that inner calling and longing. I think I'm going to put this on pause while I think about what I'm going to say next. Okay, hopefully, nope, the dog's still barking. I was hoping he would stop barking. Anyway, so okay, so I was stuck in the void and some shift happened, which I'll tell you about in a second, but I wanted to share an experience and some insight that I had along the way. It was evening time and I was just sitting there on the couch watching television, and I just kind of got really present, and I just was really sitting with myself and just, I don't know, I just became really, really present with myself and kind of taking like this overview of my life as it currently was. And it was so funny. It was like, it's kind of like every middle-aged person goes, oh my God, I've become my parents. It just was like, oh my God, I've become my mother. And I could see parts of my how my dad came in, but the realization that happened, that was just kind of the thought. And then all of this like download aha stuff started coming in. And I was sitting there and I could clearly, as soon as I said, oh my God, I've become my mother, which isn't entirely a bad thing, I could see, sense, and feel all this download was coming in, how this whole mind body structure was not personal at all. It had nothing to do with me. And when I'm pointing to me, I'm meaning the essence of God that is me. That I was literally I don't, digitized isn't the word, but I was every concept, thought, ancestral thought of my parents and every generation with it. I could literally feel the thought forms that I had accepted and been ingrained that were holding me together, that was holding this structure together. And I realized in that moment, there is nothing personal about who I am at this point. And that all these thought forms were given to me. They were given to you. You don't even know. It was so clear how little each and every one of us knows of ourselves, because we've been so structured by everything else, because we had no idea of this inner essence of us. We just took it on. It was so bizarre. And then it was so weird, and it dropped this personal aspect to me, and then it started a whole new phase of other stuff, which I'll tell you. But I also got this vision of this vehicle, me, of like why I incarnated. And I got this vision of the out breath of the fractal that I'm a part of, that I could feel that I was like, the out breath, you go, and at some point the out breath stops before it begins its journey back, that I was this vehicle. I'm just going to use the word I, okay? You can't talk about these things without using these terms. That I was at the end of that out breath of my fractal. And then it made it very, very clear to me that I was here, that one of my biggest, if not main purposes, of course, to awaken, but that I was at that bottom part of the fractal, the out breath, and I was here to clear all of that ancestral thing. And this all came in at once. And it showed me, so it kind of showed that, I do have a purpose, and it's not an outward purpose. It's more of an inward journey to help heal this ancestral line of this fractal. But it also showed me very clearly in Gene Keys speak that those of you, so for anybody who has Gene Keys or knows Gene Keys, that those of you who have the 44th Gene Key in the sphere of evolution are most definitely one of those people of the 144,000. And I'm not sounding, doing this as pat on my back or this something special, not at all. But that if you, and I have the 44th gene key in that evolution, and that evolution sphere is your lifetime opposition, is that's one thing that you will work on for the rest of your life. But it stops at some point being personal, and you carry this healing the rest of your life to heal that fractal, if you're on this awakening journey, right? So anybody who out there who does gene keys or counsels people on gene keys, that if you have the 44th gene key in the sphere of evolution, you have a heavy load. And you probably had perhaps a very traumatic life, but it's all there for a reason. And I could see this, that in that fractal, it's more from my mother, right? I could see all the ancestral things that needed to be healed there and all that, and a little bit from the father. And then I could see the core wound that I'm here to take on for humanity. And that is the wound of repression, So it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Like I said, it all came in at once, and it was just like, aha, aha, aha. And then, after that experience, I finally realized, and it took a couple of days, I realized at some point I had transitioned, still clearing personal stuff, but I'm now in this space of healing and clearing collective and deeper humanity's collective wounds of the particular ones that I resonate with. It's quite a different journey. Anyway, so that was one experience. Let's see, anything else? Oh, yes. So I guess one of my gifts or abilities, I've always had the ability to sense and feel and really, physically sense and feel the higher bodies. I could feel the causal body, also known as higher self or the soul. I could feel that moving down, and I've spoken about that in other videos, that, once you have realization of no self, the causal body begins to not break down, but it becomes to be embodied. And I felt that coming down. And then you have your Buddhic, Atmic, and monadic subtle bodies. And I could feel them. I could feel their locations and all the different vibrations. And just in the last couple of months, I could feel, actually in the last month or so, I was beginning to feel this shift. I could tell something was shifting, like the void was beginning to loosen up. And I could feel like, and I'm not saying that this is literally how it is, but this is what it felt like where it felt like I was feeling the Atmic and Buddhic and monadic bodies way up there. Suddenly they were right here, very close to me. And I thought, oh, they're now beginning to embody. And this is the process of embodiment of Brahman, the Brahman awareness that you were put on hold here in the void while all this stuff started working out. So your Buddhic, Atmic, that's a hard word to say, and monadic bodies can now become the authority or the author or the leader of the personality over the lower bodies. There's an integration, there's a communion, okay? And in the Gene Key speak, Gene Key 22 talks about these stages of awakening, and I had it confirmed several times by the sage without me really asking, that the stages of initiation that were happening here were the stages between 5 and 6, that 5 was happening and 6 was coming online. It was very clear. So communion of those higher bodies was coming in. And I'll tell you what else I was noticing. I knew something was about to happen because always when I meditate or, just sit with eyes closed, always in the past, lights, whatever lights showed up have always kind of indicated to me, oh, something, awareness is open further and you're seeing a glimpse of another body. Does that make sense? So for instance, when Kundalini was very active about 10 years ago, I was meditating, I would get those bright, hot, fire white flashes of white. And it was like a warm but brilliant, shocking white flashes, like it was on fire. And these flashes would come at you. And the first couple of times, actually every time it happened, it didn't scare me, but my body had a physical reaction. My heart rate was, and I had the fear response in my body to this light. It was so shocking. But you could see it, you could tolerate it. And it was that white firelight. And I always associated that with the monadic body. I don't know if that's true, but many people talk about that white firelight. Well, and also there's the blue pearl that I won't get into that, but it's a little blue dot that people see eyes open externally and within meditation. And that's always been around for me as well. And that blue dot was beginning to change. There was another light coming behind it, kind of making that blue dot semi-opaque, or another brilliant light behind it that wasn't this white firelight. Excuse me. Anyway, and then in meditation, it started about a month, 8 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, a whole new light started to appear. And it scared the hell out of me. Actually, it didn't scare the hell, it's just so shocking. It is this white, this light is intolerable. You cannot look at it. It's not a white, hot fire white, but it's a cool, silvery, crystal clear, white, bluish light. I don't know how to describe it, but if I can make a comparison, it's kind of like the incandescent bulb, which kind of has a warm light, versus an LED light, where the LED is kind of like that clear, bright white. Anyway, this light has flashed many times in my meditations, and it would show up. I had visions. I had a vision of me walking through this dark corridor, going through a door, and right behind me was a duplicate of my body, but it was in this light following me. Anyway, this light is so shocking and it's intolerable. You cannot look at it. I had no idea what it was. I do now, I think. But I knew a shift was happening. Okay. So anyway, let's see. Anything else I want to share with you so stuck in the void. Yes. So after these lights started happening and I was feeling the higher bodies real close to me, and I was like, what is going on? Anyway, I didn't know what was going on. But one night when I was drifting off to sleep, I just thought, I know there's something beyond Brahman. You could just feel it. Now, when we say Brahman, we know that there's consciousness. So consciousness can have its own awakening. And that would be, I think, like a self-realization or God consciousness, unity consciousness can happen within consciousness. And then you have this no self, awakening or realization. And that's the awareness behind consciousness that awakens to itself. Consciousness awakens to itself, awareness awakens to itself. And this is like the nothingness, the stillness. You can't talk about it because there's nothing there. The silence, all the words people use, right? And I thought there must be something more. I know there's something more beyond Brahman. I mean, how could there be something beyond nothingness? And so I thought there must be something more to experience without the sensory equipment of this body. And I don't know if that's making sense, but here's what I did. I just laid back and I let go of consciousness. I went back, was letting go of consciousness. And then I said, I'm going to let go of awareness. I'm going to let go of all attachment, anything that's keeping me in the body, like sensory experience, because I know there's something beyond, there's got to be a stage or something beyond this. Am I making sense? And in an instant, for an instant, it was as if I left the body, but of course, I still had to be in the body in order to register this. Sorry. This experience is still new. I haven't forgotten it yet. And for an instant, I was like sucked out, and I ended up in this white, this plane of white. And it was as if it was like I knew it was the source. And it was as if you're like, how can I describe it? It was as if you're stepping into a totally white room and it's hermetically sealed, like, and it was like everything. And in that moment, the moment I hit that white space, everything shut down. And when I say shut down, in contrast, when you're in awareness in that space of the void and nothingness, or even in consciousness, you can feel a vibratory somethingness there. You know, there's movement and there's some sensory element to it. And I'm probably not using any of the right terms, but there was a sense there of something. Even nothingness to me had something to it. It had a vibratory feel, it had a sound to it. The silence had a sound. But in this white space, it was as if they took that main switch and shut everything off. You were like sucked into this hermetically sealed space. And it was like for the first time, I could breathe. And it was the most incredible peace. That I've ever experienced. And what I describe it as, everything went blank. It wasn't even nothingness, because nothingness didn't even exist in there. It was before anything and everything. Does that make sense? It was blankness, but it was this white blankness, total nothing. Unbelievable. Anyway, it lasted very quickly. And so I had this experience and I kind of didn't know. I was like, holy shit, what was that? That was a whole new something. I don't know what it is. Now, before I tell you what it is, because I figured it out, or I don't know if I figured it out. I do want to tell you is that I don't know if it was the same night, but I was just kind of playing around with stuff, or it was the night before, being in this, as I was drifting off to, that's my space. That's my play space. I play with awareness there. And actually, this is one of the signs. Yeah, this is one of the signs when you reach that when you've had an awakening in this white space zone. One of the signs is you can do something because your awareness is totally free. But I didn't know this, but I was playing around. I was just in awareness, and I was thinking about my back neighbor, which I was kind of ornery with because anyway, bright lights, loud music, and I thought about I just thought about him, wondered what was going on, and in that instant my awareness went to my neighbor, and suddenly it was so fast you couldn't read it all. It was like everything about the neighbor was coming in, and the stuff that I read, like I saw gargoyles, and it was very dark, and I was like, oh, I got to get out of here. First of all, I felt like it was an intrusion of privacy, but it just felt uncomfortable. The gargoyle and the darkness was from this life, or I can't remember, but all this information was coming in. It was like instantly I was in my neighbor, or as my neighbor, or reading the Akashic records. I don't know, but then it came right back. So that was fascinating. Okay. I'm sorry I'm all over the place. It's a little hard to talk about this stuff. Am I still recording? Yes. Okay. So this white space. So let's see. I can't remember the chain of events that has happened. So a couple of days, and I was like, I wonder what that is. And of course, as usual, I stumble on an interview, 2 interviews actually, that talk about, God darn it. And I was like, oh, I haven't listened to this guy in a while. I kind of hate their interviews, but what the heck, I'll listen to these 2. And they were David Buckland and Andrew somebody, and they are talking about Brahman awareness and what it's like to be in that. And then they switched to the stage of pure divinity. And I was driving as I was listening to this, and I thought to myself, what they're saying sounds exactly like what I experienced, even down to the white. There's not even a brilliant white, it's like white. It's a white space. And I thought, did I get a glimpse of pure divinity? Like I wasn't even thinking, who thinks that they can get a glimpse of pure divinity? Anyway, and I thought, I think I did. Or pure divinity, that it's not consciousness awareness, you got pure divinity. Pure divinity also must realize itself by itself within the vehicle. So at each stage, consciousness wakes up to itself, awareness wakes up to itself by itself, right? With no help from the personality or the mind. And then who knew pure divinity, whatever that is, also realizes itself by itself here in a physical form. Anyway, let's turn that off. And I said to him, I was driving, and I said, I think that's it. And I said, yes. I don't know why I said, I've never said this before, but I was like, yes, I'm ready to receive this. I say, yes, 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 to pure divinity. And holy shit, it was as if I needed to realize or understand what was happening before it came in or said yes to. And as I was driving, it's like the Buddhic, Atmic, and Monadic, something became embodied. Everything came down, and I started shaking. I was like, the energy was intense. I could just feel the energy flowing through my body. And I suddenly felt real. Now, I don't know if that was having that glimpse, I think what happened is Brahman actually was able to embody in this body. The awareness of Brahman finally dropped in, and I finally felt real. Now, when you're stuck in this void, you don't feel real, right? Because all you feel is nothingness. I'm nothing. No one's here. Nothing, nothing's anywhere. And you feel like nothing. And I could feel this, it all just embodied. I feel now real. I was driving and I could feel, I said, I feel real for the first time in my life. And I could feel everything, all the subtle bodies, you know, and on the very outskirt of these layers, it's not even a layer, it's like the only layer, was that blankness. I could feel it all. I could feel the everythingness of consciousness and awareness, and reaching out to the far reaches of my subtle bodies was the blankness. And I have to tell you, it was about 2 days of feeling this, and it was absolute heaven. Everything is going on here, but resting on that blankness was very palpable. Unbelievable. So I think what has transitioned, I've transitioned perhaps from the void, embodiment, and a glimpse of pure divinity, which I don't know how that works. I know nothing about pure divinity. I don't know what happens. I don't even know if maybe I don't know. I don't know. But something is awoke in itself to itself. And maybe it's at this point that the real me emerges, right? My true essence can now begin to emerge. I don't know. I'm in a I don't know zone. It's quite lovely. I'm going to have to go back and listen to these interviews because I didn't quite finish it because I was like stuck in the middle and they were talking about pure divinity. I was like in shock and I was like going, yes, yes, that's it. And I couldn't listen any further. So I know, I haven't, when I can't read past something or listen past something, I know I'm right there. I've just had a glimpse or a minor awakening. I'm pretty sure pure divinity at least had a minor realization of itself here. Anyway, and here's the thing. Oh yeah, and here's another telltale sign that I didn't know prior. I was feeling this prior to the interview. What happens is nothingness is gone. Like everything is gone. My experience of nothingness is gone. Like relativity is gone. It's very hard to describe, but what I was feeling was confirmed by the interview. Anyway, it's a fascinating journey. I hope this personality can live up to the awakenings that are happening in this vehicle. So far, it hasn't. Anyway, it's all for fun. Anyway, okay, I hope that was interesting. I'm sorry it was such a long video, but gosh darn, I mean, there's no shortcuts when you're talking about Brahman and pure divinity. Okay, until another update, bye.